You ever have one of those moments that just shatters you? Like you're gliding through life, minding your own business. Then suddenly the universe flips the table and everything you thought you could count on just, I don't know, burns to the ground right there in front of you. That's how it started for us. Not with some slow-motion drama, but with a scream so sharp it cut straight through the hum. Of Flight 447, right over Kansas at 35,000 feet. And I swear, for a split second, the whole world went quiet, except for the sound of my 7-year-old daughter's cry. Emma was just dozing against the window, arms wrapped around her battered stuffed bunny, dreaming about whatever 7-year-olds dream about on long flights. I was half awake myself, probably thinking about work, the rent, groceries, real-life stuff. Next thing I know, there's blood blooming on her blue dress, and a woman with way too much perfume and a badge that screamed, HOA president, was standing over her, clutching a ballpoint pen like it was a weapon she'd been waiting her whole life to use. She kept kicking my seat. This lady hissed. Karen, of course it was Karen, her face all twisted up with righteous rage, like Emma was personally responsible for the collapse of Western civilization. For a second, I couldn't process what I was seeing. My kid, wide-eyed, mouth opening and closing, shock flooding her tiny face. Blood. On a plane. Because of a pen. I remember whispering, "You stabbed my baby." My voice was shaking, but then I shouted it, and everything erupted. Passengers stood up, the flight attendants hustled over, and I just froze. I pressed my hands against Emma's shoulder, desperately trying to stop the bleeding. The only thing I could focus on was her terrified little voice. "Mommy, it hurts." God, that still haunts me. Karen started rambling about her important conference, about how she paid for business class and shouldn't have to deal with children. That's how she said it. Like Emma was some kind of wild animal loose in the cabin. Even with everyone yelling for her to be restrained, Karen just wouldn't quit, tossing her titles around. Like anyone cared. President of 3 HOAs, she kept bragging. "I know people." "Lady, you don't know anything." Somewhere in that chaos, a voice came over the intercom, calm, steady, familiar in a way that made my heart lurch. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking." I swear, time stopped. 8 years. It had been 8 years since I'd seen him, the only man I'd ever really loved, the one I'd left behind when I was young and scared and pregnant. And now, somehow, here he was, about to walk down that aisle. James Carter, still in his captain's uniform. Looking older, but every bit the man I remembered. His eyes locked on mine, then Emma's, and he went white as a sheet. But training took over, and he knelt right next to us, voice gentle but hands strong as he checked Emma's wound, asking, "Hey there, sweetheart, can you tell me your name?" Emma sniffled, "Emma Mitchell," and I watched as realization dawned in his eyes. Saw him put together 1,000 pieces all at once, the bracelet on her wrist, the timing, the color of her hair. I saw him see her. He was her father. And in that moment, for the first time in years, I saw everything I'd stolen from both of them. 8 years of birthdays, bedtime stories, scraped knees. He turned to me, barely able to get the words out. "Is she?" And I just nodded. "Yes, she's yours." Then Karen made her move, demanding a lawyer, threatening lawsuits, still refusing to back down. But James had had enough. He stood up, tall, unmovable, and he laid out her whole life. Her name, her address, her family, all the power she thought protected her. "You stabbed my daughter," he said, and I've never heard anyone sound so cold. "When we land, you'll learn about real consequences. Prison, Mrs. Hendricks. Not HOA fines. Prison." The rest of that flight was a blur. The crew prepped for landing. The EMTs boarded as soon as we touched down, and James, he never left Emma's side, except to fly the damn plane, of course. Even then, he promised her, "When we land, I'm not going anywhere. I swear." And you could see it in Emma's eyes, somehow, even through the pain. She just believed him. She looked up at him and whispered, "You're really my daddy?" And I'll never forget the way his face crumpled. "Yeah, baby. I'm really your daddy. I'm so sorry I wasn't here before." Karen was arrested right there on the plane, dragged off in handcuffs, her mask finally cracking. Wait, it was an accident. I didn't mean, too late for that. The world saw who she really was, and for once, There was no boardroom or lawyer or angry letter that could save her. At the hospital, Emma was patched up, just a flesh wound, thank God. Kids heal fast, the doctors said. But it was James who helped her the most. He sat by her bed, making her laugh with corny pilot jokes, promising her the sky. The scar would be small, he said, but it would mean she survived something. Tough. She liked that. Does it mean I'm brave? She asked. Braver than most adults, he replied, smiling through his tears. That night, after Emma fell asleep, James and I stood in the hospital hallway and tried to patch up 8 years of silence. I told him everything. Why I left, how scared I was, how I thought I'd just ruin his life if I stayed. He told me he searched for me, that I was his dream, not some obstacle. There was anger, yes, enough to fill the room. But underneath it, all that love we'd tried to bury was still there, stubborn as ever. He told me he wanted to be Emma's father, really be there for her, and I said yes to all of it. Anything he needed, whatever it took. Karen's trial became national news. HOA president stabs child on flight, splashed everywhere. Her own board threw her out. Her family left her. Even her lawyer couldn't save her. 8 years in prison, the judge said. 8 years, the same as the years James missed with Emma. Justice, in its own strange way. James moved back to Oregon. We started slow, therapy, school pickups, birthdays. He took Emma to air shows, taught her about planes, and she lit up in a way I'd never seen. We were awkward at first, but bit by bit, we learned how to be a family. Some days it was hard. Some nights the hurt felt bigger than the love. But we stuck with it. Emma wanted to go to the sentencing. She wanted to see that people who hurt others face consequences. And when Karen got her sentence, Emma squeezed my hand and said, "That's fair." She was really mean, but now she can learn to be nicer. She's got the biggest heart. God, I wish I could say she got that from me. A couple years later, we were flying together, James, Emma, and me. Emma, now 10, perched up in the cockpit, grinning as James explained the instruments. She looked up and asked, "Daddy, do you ever think about that lady who hurt me?" And James said, "Sometimes. But I think maybe she's learning. Maybe she'll be better someday." Emma nodded. "I hope so. You know, I used to think our story was just about loss. Lost years, lost chances. But really, it's about second chances. About finding your way back, no matter how broken things seem. We lost 8 years, but we found a lifetime. That's worth something, isn't it? So, tell me, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Do you think justice was really served? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And let's talk about what it means to forgive, to fight for family, to start over. And hey, if you stuck with us this far, hit like, subscribe, and let me know where you're watching from. I want to hear your story, too. After the trial, life didn't magically snap back to perfect. Nobody's does, right? But I'll tell you, those next few months felt like we were finally building something real, brick by brick, even if some of those bricks were jagged with regret. James moved into an apartment not too far from our place, just close enough for Emma to pop over after school and borrow his old NASA ball cap, or for us to order Friday night pizza and binge old sci-fi movies in pajamas. Yeah, it sounds simple. But after everything, it felt like winning the lottery. Emma thrived. She'd race home from school with stories about how she'd beat everyone at math, or how her new pilot dad taught her to fold paper airplanes that flew all the way across the playground. You should have seen her face the first time James took her up in one of those little training planes, white-knuckled at first. But by the time they landed, she was buzzing with pure, wild joy, cheeks flushed, asking when she could go again. I stood on the tarmac, heart in my throat, thinking about all the milestones James had missed, and how grateful I was that, finally, he was here for this one. For me and James, things were a little more complicated. We went to therapy, sometimes together, sometimes alone, just trying to sort through the wreckage of all those lost years. Some nights we'd sit in his kitchen, talking until dawn, laughing about our younger, stupider selves, arguing over who remembered Emma's first word right, and sometimes just crying for everything we could never get back. He told me about the women he'd dated, the places he'd lived, how every milestone in his career felt hollow because he didn't know he had a daughter out there waiting for him. I told him about every sleepless night, about the guilt that stuck to my ribs, how I tried to be both mom and dad, but never really felt like enough. Slowly, the anger faded, not all at once, but bit by bit, replaced by something softer, something like forgiveness. I saw it in the way James watched Emma, completely mesmerized by her, helping with science projects, teaching her about stars, listening to her explain the difference between a red dwarf and a white dwarf like she was giving a TED talk. Sometimes I'd catch him looking at me, a mix of old pain and new hope, and I'd wonder if maybe, just maybe, we could be more than co-parents. Meanwhile, the whole Karen thing became the cautionary tale at every neighborhood potluck, every online forum. People couldn't believe someone like her, so powerful, so untouchable in her little world, could end up sitting in a jail cell, her reputation in ruins. HOA boards everywhere quietly scrubbed her name from their websites. Emma would occasionally see a news headline or hear something at school, but she always came back to the same thing. She did something bad, Mom, and she had to face it. That's how it should be. If only more adults saw it so clearly. About 6 months after the sentencing, Emma turned 8. We threw the kind of birthday party she'd never had before. A backyard full of balloons, a lopsided cake with plastic planes on top, and James leading the world's loudest chorus of happy birthday. At the end, as we cleaned up, James pulled me aside and said, "Thank you for letting me be here, for trusting me again." And I realized, as much as I'd feared losing control, there was something liberating about finally sharing the load, about letting someone else love our kid as fiercely as I did. The biggest surprise, though, was how Emma changed both of us. She made us braver. She asked the tough questions about why I left, about why James wasn't around, about what makes a family, and she listened to our answers, even when they weren't pretty. She taught us what it meant to forgive, to start again, to focus on what you have right now instead of what you lost. One night, after she'd fallen asleep on the couch between us, James looked at me and said, "I still love you." I never stopped. And for the first time in years, I let myself believe we might have a future together, scars and all. 2 years flew by. James and I took it slow, rebuilding trust with every awkward conversation, every shared meal, every little crisis, sick days, scraped knees, lost homework. We figured out a rhythm. Therapy helped. So did Emma's laughter echoing down the hallway. Her drawings taped up on both our fridges, her voice calling out, "Daddy, Mom, come look at this." Sometimes love isn't a lightning bolt. Sometimes it's just showing up, day after day, even when you're tired or scared or unsure. Eventually, James asked me to marry him. Nothing fancy, just the 3 of us on the beach at sunset, Emma between us, holding both our hands. "Let's do this for real this time," he said, and I couldn't say yes fast enough. The wedding was small, just family, a couple of friends, and Emma dropping petals like she was launching a space mission. I thought my heart would burst, watching James dance with her under those twinkle lights, knowing how close we came to missing all of this. Every now and then, Emma still asks about the lady on the plane. She remembers, sure, but mostly she remembers what came after, the way her family came together, the way her story didn't end with pain, but with possibility. And isn't that what we all want? A second chance, a little grace, a shot at rewriting our story? So here we are, messy, imperfect, stubbornly hopeful. We lost 8 years, but we got the rest of our lives. And if you've ever wondered if it's worth fighting for family, if forgiveness is possible, or if one terrible moment has to define you forever, take it from me. You get to decide how your story ends. Let me know down in the comments. What would you have done in our place? Can people really change, or do they always go back to who they were? And if you're still watching, don't forget to subscribe, drop a like, and tell me where you're tuning in from. I want to hear your story, because sometimes the best endings are really just new beginnings.